Clint Eastwood's new film American Sniper has been the target of quite a bit of controversy, with many people saying the film glorified an immoral war and also glorified a man who should not be glorified at all. And yet many people who don't mind the subject matter being portrayed this way still highly praise the film. The film stars Bradley Cooper as Chris Kyle, the man who had more sniper kills than anyone else in U.S. history. We follow him from childhood, watch him get married and start a family, while also serving 4 tours in Iraq. Now I could spend 10 or maybe even 15 minutes talking about the political aspects of this film, and I could even discuss whether this film should be judged based off these aspects at all, or if we should just look at what's being portrayed on the screen and ignoring the bigger picture here. Well, for this review, I'm just going to be looking at what's on the screen in front of me, without worrying about how Eastwood and the rest of his team handle the moral aspects of the war in the Middle East. And looking at just what Eastwood gives us, I can't help but feel a bit underwhelmed, because this film feels less like a good war drama and more like a well-made TV movie about a war veteran. And I have flat out let Clint Eastwood play me and my emotions like a piano before, with this terrific film Million Dollar Baby almost bringing me to tears. But there was very little emotion found in this movie, and there were several times the film tried to show some. The film shows Kyle fall in love before going to Iraq, but when he returns he's experiencing PTSD. But I found Eastwood's techniques to show the PTSD to be pretty bad, to be honest, and I could even see him trying to make us care for Chris Kyle's struggle. And if we can see a director trying to make us care, that breaks us from the experience. And I seriously feel like most of the techniques Eastwood used are things that would be used by students at a film school. Another big issue with American Sniper is the sniper himself. He just isn't that interesting. The real Chris Kyle was known to have said some pretty bad things, but Eastwood decided to leave these things out of the movie. And because this film was careful to not show Kyle as a controversial figure, but instead as an everyday guy, he just wasn't very interesting at all. If Kyle had been the apparent racist that he appeared to be in this movie, Chris Kyle and this movie as a whole would be much more interesting. But as is, the character is sort of bland and it hurts the movie. Captain Willard in Apocalypse Now had a pretty dark side to him, and Captain Miller in Saving Private Ryan also had demons of his own. If Chris Kyle had been portrayed in this film more like the real Chris Kyle, then the character could have been more interesting, and possibly just as interesting as those two that I just mentioned. But instead he's just pretty bland. And although Kyle is sort of a bland character, the filmmakers clearly liked him way too much in this film. What do I mean? Well, they call him a legend in this film in 10 different scenes. Yes, I counted 10 scenes. And several of those scenes have him being called a legend 2 or 3 times. So this film clearly tried to glorify this guy way too much. I mean, even a film about Audie freaking Murphy shouldn't hype him up that much. We as an audience should connect to this guy, but calling him a legend 30 times in the movie makes us identify him in a way less than we should have. Another issue with this film is how the war is portrayed. Without even looking at the morality of it, this film botches what this war should have been. Because in this film, it's just treated like a bunch of action scenes, and that's it. He goes on 4 tours, and the result in the movie is 4 10 or 15 minute long action scenes. Now, war is hell, and it should be portrayed as such. Now, if you've seen a lot of war films, do me a favor. Name me one serious war movie that was good that showed the war as anything but unpleasant. I can't think of a single one. Of course, there are good things in this film. I mean, it's an Eastwood film after all. It's well acted, it's pretty decently paced, so it isn't ever boring, and the action scenes are pretty entertaining, although I ultimately wish they weren't there at all. Or if they are there, they're dumbed down to just a bare necessity and not overblown like they are in this movie. I've gone back and forth on whether or not I should recommend this film, because if you go to see it, there's a solid chance that you will like it. But even while watching the movie, I was bothered by how safe and how formulaic it all seemed. A movie with this subject matter and this talent behind it should have been much better. And although it was very well made, I have to believe that films with less talent and money behind them can still be better films by achieving what they set out to do, even if they have more technical flaws than this film had. But I look at the film's budget and the talent that was in it, and I just feel like this should have been better. And although there are good elements, I feel like this film failed in its primary mission, which was to tell the story of Chris Kyle. Yes, things in the film are nice, but if the story of Kyle doesn't work, then the film doesn't work. I'm giving American Sniper 2 stars out of 5. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.